Okay, here we are for lesson 6. We're going to put together what we know about rational numbers into order of operations. So the order of operations that we were working with integers applies to any and all expressions all the time. So when we're working with rational numbers, we're still going to be using BEDMAS. So let's just get straight into some examples. So look at the first example here. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my mixed numbers because mixed numbers are not very useful when I'm doing math. So let's take a look. -2, we're going to switch that one. It's going to be -8/3, put my equal sign in, multiplied by -9/5 minus -2/3. And now what am I going to do first? I have to do what's inside the brackets. So I'm going to do what's inside the brackets first. I'm going to get -8/3 times. I need a common denominator, which is going to be 15. Like that. So let's first think through some of the signs in here. So this is going to be negative, so whatever it is still going to be negative. And -9, we multiplied this by 3, so we're going to multiply that by 3, so that should be -27. -27/15, and I've got minus a negative. So minus -2/3. Minus a negative is going to be a positive, so I'm just going to make that plus. And then 2/3, this is times 5, so that's times 5, it's going to be, that's a 10. Okay. And we'll continue. Notice I'm keeping that -8/3 at the beginning. I'm not getting rid of it, because once I get rid of it, it's possible that I could forget to bring it back. So I keep it through every single step until I'm ready to use it. So I'm going to multiply that by -27 plus 10 is going to be -17/15. And to continue, now I'm just going to multiply negative times a negative. My final answer is going to be positive. And I don't have any cancellation opportunities. So I'm going to have 8 times 17, going to be 136. Over 3 times 15, which is 45. As I said, it's going to be positive. So 136/45 is going to reduce to 3 and 1/45. So that's going to be your final answer. On to the next example. Let's take a look at So once again, I'm going to convert those mixed numbers right at the very beginning. So I'm going to start with a new statement. I'm going to keep that 5/6. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14/5, and it's negative. Then I'm going to divide by 1 and 1/2, which is 3/2. So what am I going to do first? Once again, it's whatever's in the brackets, because brackets is the first part of BEDMAS. So I'm going to have 5/6 plus -14/5. I'm going to multiply by the inverse. So I'm going to flip 2/3. And that's my next step. I'm going to continue taking the 5/6 with me, plus 14 times 2, -28. 5 times 3 is 15. And 6 and 15, I need to get a common denominator. They're going to work well for 6 and 15, and that's going to be 30 is the lowest common denominator there. So I'm going to have 30, plus a negative is going to just be a subtraction over 30. And what did I do to the 6? 6 times 5. 5 times 5 gives me 25 on top. 15 times 2 gives me 30. So -28 times 2, or in this case 28 times 2, is going to give me 56. Okay. Let's continue over here. So 25 minus 56 is -31 over 30. Should be fairly straightforward to figure out what that is when you're converting back into a mixed number. How many 30s fit into 31? That's 1. So I'm going to take one whole number out, which is 30 30ths. And if I take 30 away, I'm going to get 1/30th. And remember, the whole thing's negative, so I'm going to put my negative back in, and that's my final answer. So very important that we follow all these steps. Notice how I'm writing everything with one equal sign per line. Each line has one step in it. That's a great way of communicating your thinking. It's an organized way, and it follows the proper mathematical notation. So the last problem that we have on our page here is a substitution problem. And substitution is a really important skill. It's a skill that you would use a lot in real life. If you have any kind of formula that you're using in a general formula, when you get given a final number, you have to substitute that back in. So maybe you have a formula for how much paper you need to purchase based on how many things you're printing, or how much ink you're going to purchase, something like that. When you find out the input number, you're going to have to figure out what the cost is or how much to order, that kind of thing. So this is a skill that you will use a lot. And there are correct ways of doing it that will always give you the correct answer. And I'm going to show you a couple tricks. Anytime you're dealing with negatives, you need to put them in brackets. So anytime you substitute in a negative number, you need to substitute it in brackets. I substitute everything in brackets just to be safe, but it's the negatives that it's really important for. So watch when I do my substitution. So I'm going to start my very first line. X is -1 and 2 over 3. So I'm going to replace that in brackets. -1 and 2 over 3 is X minus Y, which is 2 and 1 over 2. On the next line, I get X plus Y. So X, once again, is -1 and 2/3. And I'm going to have it plus 2 and 1/2. So remembering to use brackets for all your negative numbers. It's extremely important, especially when we start using exponents. So the next line, I'm going to get rid of all my mixed numbers. So 1 and 2 over 3, well, 1 times 3 is 3 plus 2. This is -5 over 3 minus 5 over 2. And I've got -5 over 3 plus 5 over 2 on the bottom. Okay, so this might be the first time you've seen a massive fraction like this, where you have a set of operations on top and a set of operations on the bottom of a fraction, or fractions on top and fractions on the bottom of a fraction. And all you have to remember is that fractions are division. So this is just a really big division question. And what it's saying is you have to do everything on top, and then you divide it by everything on the bottom. So it's almost the same as writing it in brackets in a linear fashion, but it's more efficient when you're writing it out like this. So it's something that you'll probably see quite often. So let's continue. I need a common denominator. My common denominator is going to be 6. So I'm going to have -6 on the top and plus over the 6's on the bottom. Now let's figure out what those numerators are. This is times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. This is times 3. This is 15. And it's -10. And so we've got -10 and 15 again. So let's switch back to blue. Let's get our next line. So -10 minus 15 is going to be -25 over 6. Remember, we're starting a negative and we're going more negative. So that's how that works. Over my -10 plus 15 is going to be +5 over 6. Now I'm going to switch this to a linear structure, because now I have one thing over one thing. So I'm going to say this is the same as -25 over 6 divided by 5 over 6. And -25 over 6 then becomes multiplied by 6 over 5. And watch this magic. The 6's cancel out, and the 5's divide. So negative 25 divided by 5 becomes negative 5. That becomes 1, 1, 1. So the answer, I'll just write over here because I'm running out of space. The answer is going to equal negative 5 over 1, or negative 5. Is that not elegant?